Hey everybody, welcome once again to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective for the week of December 23rd, 2018. You are listening to episode number 8. I'm your host, Drew, and I am joined by Merry Mischief himself, Will.
What's up, Drew?
Oh man, it's been a crazy week, but everything is good. I'm in good spirits, man.
That's good.
How are you?
I'm good, man. I would say I'm in the same. I could be better. I'm just tired from work. For folks that are listening, do not work retail.
No.
But other than that, I'm good, man. I've got this wonderful IPA. It's actually a double India Pale Ale.
Nice.
An A10 Warthog from Massachusetts. I'm really enjoying this. And other than that, man, yeah, good spirits as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Sounds like you've got your drink and your Be Merry part down. I don't know if you've eaten yet, but
I have.
Excellent. Well, first of all, everyone, I just want to thank you for joining us for today. Be sure to check us out wherever you download your podcasts. Just look for us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, or whatever podcast app you prefer. WDGR Podcast. You can hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram using that as well, at WDGR Podcast. That's the best way to get in touch with us. Or hit us up on Gmail, WDGRPodcast at gmail.com. Will, if somebody wants to follow you, how can they do so?
Will_gear.
And you can hit me up at Psionstorm, PSIONSTORM. Not Poison, it's Scion. I should change it to just It's Scion.
Yeah.
But then I'm afraid somebody will take my name. Like, I've had this since the AOL days.
Yeah, you got to keep that shit.
I got it on lock. So, well, let's start out like we do every week, man. What are you playing?
Tetris Effect.
Ooh.
I'm sure some people that have been listening to this show, they probably were not expecting that to be my answer, but I blame it on you, man. When we did our last show and you gave me the chance to kind of test it out, I'm hooked. I'm in.
I'll take the blame. I'm fine with that.
What a great game. We kind of discussed earlier, kind of off the show, that this might be the first time I've played Tetris. I thought that I had played it before, but I don't think I have. And
Right.
I'm learning the concept of it. As easy as it is, it's still something that you kind of have to learn and practice.
Yeah.
And, I'm getting better, but just the visuals and the sound and just the way that the game kind of draws you in, very addicting, very good, very well made. So that's what I'm playing.
I had an opportunity to show a couple friends that during the week as well too, and it's amazing watching other people play Tetris because everybody has their own style, their own way of doing it.
Yeah, I could see that.
For such a simple game, it's tremendously deep, and they've done a really good job with this one by keeping the gameplay classic, not screwing with the formula too much, but adding just enough, not just the visuals or the music, but like the having the ability to bank a piece for later, or the zone feature where you can kind of go into like this trance and just kind of start laying down lines, really boost your score up.
And I feel like that's what this game is. It's like somebody dropped acid on it, and you just end up, in this trance of Tetris. And I don't know. I think that it's a must for a big screen as well. If you have a big, 55-inch or anything of that kind of caliber,
Yeah.
Fire it up on that. Do not play this on, a monitor.
Unless you're playing it in VR, in which case that's the complete opposite, I guess. Well, I guess in VR it would be like, a 100-inch screen at that point because it's just encompassing your face.
I'd love to do it, but at the same time, I'm almost like intimidated by it.
Yeah, but I from what I've seen, there was a video. I think I don't remember who did it. Maybe Digital Foundry. They got one of the top Tetris champions in the world to play the game, and he had really not played a recent one outside of the Nintendo one back in the day, and he put on the VR headset and he was actually doing better than he was when he was playing it on a regular screen because there's no lag.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I guess the VR headset has some kind of like zero lag technology because it's coming straight out of the PlayStation. There's no monitor to go through. It's coming straight from the source. So,
That makes sense.
Even though you and I might not perceive there being any lag, somebody that's playing at that skill level absolutely would,
Mm-hmm. Is this, what's his name again? Is it Nick Robinson, or is that just the guy that uploads the videos?
That sounds like the guy that uploaded the video.
Yeah.
I think that sounds about right.
Huh.
I don't remember the player's name, but he was a Nintendo World Champion, and back in the what was it, the 90s, early 90s, they had the World Championships, I think.
Yeah.
He was one of the guys who won that when he was a kid, and Tetris was his go-to. And he's basically stayed playing that version of Tetris since. He really hasn't jumped out of the other ones, and he still plays at a high level. Oh,
I'm sure.
So
what's on Drew's docket right now for gaming?
Well, so there's a PC strategy game that I've been a big fan of for a very long time, Sins of a Solar Empire. And recently they came out with some DLC for their newest version of the game called Rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
So in honor of the DLC, they put the base game out for free. I think they had it out for like 2 or 3 days. And our friend Vency apparently is a huge strategy gamer, and I had no idea. Like, I've known this kid for years, never once knew that he liked strategy games. So I linked in the chat that this was, free, and he's like, oh my God, this is like the kind of game I've been wanting to play for a while. He downloads it, and like for the past 3 or 4 nights, we've been playing until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh God.
And this game is like this nice combination between an RTS like Command & Conquer and a game like Civilization, like the 4X kind of game they call them.
Sure.
So you have this sense of, just one more turn, but your battles are happening in real time. It's not a turn-based combat, but the gameplay is scaled back. It's a little bit of a slower pace because the idea is you have time to build this military, but you can also, if you don't want to go a military route, you can pursue a diplomatic route. You can pursue an influential route. There's all these different things you can do to win. It doesn't have to be just obliterate the competition, although it does tend to be that way in multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
A tremendously deep game. Gorgeous, just absolutely stunning. And this game has been around. I think the first one came out in 2008, 2009, somewhere around there.
Wow.
I have to look this up now. Because I know Rebellion was fairly recent. Rebellion, I think, came out in 2012. I guess not that recent, but yeah. So the original game, which I bought, I think the date came out was on February 2008.
Gosh.
And then Rebellion came out 2011. They consider it an expansion to the game, but it is standalone as well too. So it uses the same engine, it uses the same races, the same ships and everything, but nothing game changing or majorly significant. But it was enough for them to say like, all right, we're retiring the old one and putting this one out as the new one to download. So I guess in reality, this is a game that's 10 years old.
Now is like Warcraft.
It's similar.
I guess similar in the sense of being, that old and something that's still kind of relevant.
Yeah. It's a shame because I feel like Sins of a Solar Empire never really got the recognition that it deserved. It's a really unique hybrid of RTS and, the Civilization 4X model. And people that love it, just absolutely fucking love this game. And people that have never, either you love this game or it's not even on your radar. There's no in between.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a weird thing. If you're a strategy gamer, you got yourself a PC. This game is incredibly flexible on systems. You can scale it up and make it look as pretty as you want, or you can scale it back and keep it kind of bare bones if your system just can't handle it. But I can't recommend it enough. you'll get some serious time in this game. There's a lot to do.
Now, is there like an acronym or like an abbreviation for this game? Because I feel like it has like an 18-character title.
Yeah, SOASE. So what? I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kaiser Sose.
Kinda, yeah.
Was it Kaiser Sose? From
Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yep, you're right. I just saw that about a month ago. Good movie.
For the first time?
I'd seen bits and pieces, and I had known like the big plot twist, but I'd never had an opportunity to like sit down and watch it beginning to end. So I finally had some time to do so, and I was like, you know what? This has been on my list for a while. I'm watching this fucking film. And it was great.
So,
I loved it.
It is good. I feel like I've only seen it once myself, kind of like in parts. So I owe it to myself to kind of sit down and watch it again properly.
Yeah. I think even knowing, the big plot reveal, I think it's still a good movie. And I don't want to go down a political path here, but Kevin Spacey, right? He's a tremendous actor.
Tremendous.
And it's a shame that his career took the turn it did.
It's an absolute shame.
I've been trying my best to separate people and what they've done on a personal level from what they've done professionally, because I'm finding that if we eliminate anybody who's done anything creative out of the picture because they happen to be a dirtbag or they've done some shitty stuff, like, we're not going to have any enjoyment in our lives ourselves. So I've been trying really hard to try and separate the two.
Yeah.
It's tricky, and this is a podcast for another podcast, but
yeah, you're right. No, I feel the same way, man. Without kind of going into into that rabbit hole, if you will.
Because the fact is, this is a video game centric podcast, and that's a rabbit hole into itself we can go down.
It certainly is, but all I'm going to say about that is I miss his acting presence, and I'll leave it at that.
I think that's a accurate statement. So we got just a couple things going on this week. We're looking at Christmas coming up in a couple days, and I thought it might be nice to kind of talk about some of our memories of video games and Christmas. And I know there's a couple things that you and I have already touched on, in the past, but being that Christmas is going to be, on Tuesday,
Santa's coming
down the chimney, man. And I don't know, tell me about some of your fondest Christmas memories.
Yeah, I remember when we kind of discussed some of our ideas before the show. I felt like it was a difficult thing for me to kind of conjure up, but at the same time, I just remember, some of the things that I spoke about, I think on the first or second episode where, I remember opening presents early, which I still, like I said, I feel terrible about, but it is what it is.
Right.
You're a kid, you do bad things. That's one of my fondest Christmas memories. I feel weird even saying fondest, but
you terrible human being, you.
I know. But look, yeah,
man, kids just, they just do things they don't realize it. It wasn't malicious.
No, it wasn't malicious at all. I was excited. And
right.
I think that that's really kind of where I'm going with this is I miss and I cherish those kind of memories is the excitement that you had when Turok was coming out or, Ocarina of Time, and you just couldn't wait to open it or you couldn't wait for Christmas to arrive so you could play these games. And I think that based on my strangely good memory on stuff that happened forever ago, and I can't remember what I ate, 5 minutes ago, I feel like that stands out is the excitement, not necessarily a particular gaming memory, besides kind of the ones that I mentioned, but I think that excitement is really hard to kind of rekindle in this, time period and at this age as well. And I think that's one of my biggest memories of Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, I think as an adult and as a gamer, it's difficult because for the most part, when there's a game that you want, you buy it.
You buy it. Exactly.
You
Especially at our age.
Right. And like, yeah, I can give Nikki a list of all the things that I want, right?
Mm.
And maybe I'll put down like 1 or 2 games on it. Well, there's a really high percentage that if she can afford it, she's going to buy them both.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the surprise of it right off the bat, gone. Like, okay, if I send you these items, I know I'm probably going to get them from you. And we have shared income, so I could just buy them for myself.
Well, see, this is what's so actually quite interesting about this conversation already and this topic is that we're kind of answering some of these questions already. The excitement from when you're a kid,
right,
versus the non-excitement when you're an adult. You're asking for these presents or you're buying them for yourself. Right. Now, even though we asked for them when we were kids, that excitement level was still there.
Yes.
Because you weren't entirely sure if that person was actually going to get it. Like if your parent was actually going to be able to, afford it, get it for you, get more, get less, whatever. Mm-hmm. And now, like, we kind of expect it. Like if you ask Nikki, like, can I get a Nintendo Switch?
Right.
She's either going to get it or like not get it, but she's more likely to just get it. And then that novelty and the surprise is just gone like almost instantly.
Right.
So you end up either just buying it for yourself or you're just like, yeah, just surprise me. And then when they surprise you, they get you like something that's just, it's like, hey, so yeah, about this controller that I can't use.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the gesture, but did you get a gift receipt? Because I'm going to have to like exchange this.
Yeah.
And that's the danger of like not, stating like what you want, exactly.
Right. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, there were a couple years where, like my father did a lot of overtime and my mom, she worked at a horse farm, which gave me the opportunity to go with her, rather than go to like daycare. So our income,
brush horses.
Yeah. I mean, I basically grew up on a farm, which, I don't regret it. Like, it was great and all. There were some times I'm sure I was like, I don't like this, but I was just being a whiny brat most of the time too. But like there were a couple years where like things were really good, depending on, how my father was doing, because he was the one that was bringing in the bulk of the income. Mm-hmm. And then there were a couple years where like things were really tight and maybe we weren't able to do so much. And I remember making a Christmas list when I was maybe around 10 or 11, old enough to be aware of what was happening, right?
Sure.
And I made this list, and I was very meticulous about putting things on there that were inexpensive and things on there that were kind of expensive, Like, I had, like, a range. I'm like, yeah, I want a Super Nintendo, I want this game, and I want this CD, and, like I tried to put stuff on there that was like, $10 all the way up to maybe $150, right? Just to kind of give them a range to work with. And there was one
quite the margin.
Yeah. Well, cause like I knew what was going on. Like I knew they didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me just give you guys, like, maybe you can surprise me, but maybe not. If you don't, it's okay. And like for whatever reason, none of the things on my list made it through. Like they didn't give me anything on the list. That was a disappointing year. And then there were some years where like, I remember one year I got a PlayStation, and it came with Battle Arena Toshinden, and my mom bought 2 other games for me, Descent and Kalik, the DNA Imperative, and I had no idea I was getting the system, and it just blew my mind. Like, it was just the craziest thing. Like, it was the first time I ever got like a video game system for Christmas.
See, this is what makes it worth it. You kind of create this fantasy list. And things fall through like maybe 1 year and then the next year. And then something like that happens and you're just like over the moon about it.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to sound like I'm a bitter kid or, like whining and complaining. Like I'm an adult. I get it. At the time it was a little rough, but looking back, I know they always did the best they could for me.
Well, that's just it. That's the difference between being a kid and an adult.
Right.
You look at things totally differently, and the excitement and the disappointment are just as high.
Totally.
Like they're just as high. Whereas like as an adult, you get disappointed about maybe not getting something. You're like, yeah, whatever, I'll just buy it tomorrow.
Right.
It's just, she didn't get this for me, but that's okay. I might as well just go on Amazon and order it from like my phone.
Right.
And that's the crazy thing in itself, just in today's world. It's just
well, that's another thing too. Like we have this world where like I can go on Slick Deals, I can look up, gaming deals, and I can see, just pulling out of my ass here, Spider-Man PS4 is on sale for $30. I'll be like, done, sold, and I press two buttons and it's on its way.
Well, that's it.
And you don't like back then, like we had to go to the store and like, make it a thing. Like, okay, I'm going to go buy this game. There was no like internet splurge purchase because there's a Black Friday sale.
Yeah. And there was a lot of mystery behind it too. Like if you knew about an item, you didn't know much about it. You knew that it existed and you knew about like, how it might have looked or whatever, but the rest was all a mystery. And even though this is not really gaming related, it's a Christmas memory. And I remember I was a huge like Lego kid.
Yep.
Love Legos. And I remember getting like my mom used to order like the catalog, so we would get the catalog in the mail.
Yeah.
In the mail. I think the beer is kicking in, Drew.
The mail.
In the mail. It's almost like a Forrest Gump pronunciation, but I remember getting that catalog and looking at like, train sets and like different like, models of Lego. And that's all you kind of saw was just like this picture. And that was it. And there was so much more mystery. So when you actually got the item and you got to unbox it and see it for yourself, it was that much more rewarding and that much more special. And I think that, that's the difference. And those are some of the memories that I think we can kind of remember and cultivate from then versus now.
And on the flip side of things too, because you had that disconnect between, the catalog and getting the actual product, if things didn't pan out the way that you wanted them to, like maybe the game like looked awesome and it sucked.
Yeah, I could tell you right now, actually, I think it was a Christmas present, so I'm glad that this popped into my memory. But Mission Impossible for N64.
Ooh.
Which is right up there with like Superman 64. It's like one of the worst games like ever created. Yeah. Now, I remember being so fucking excited for this game, and I don't even really know why. I think I was really watching the movie, like the first movie, like a lot.
Yeah.
Like the first one with Tom Cruise, not the old, but the one from like 96 or whatever. And when they announced that game, I was so pumped for it. And then I remember when I got it, and I think it was a Christmas present, I was like, holy fuck, this is a bad game.
Yeah.
But I was in denial, so I just played it anyway, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. But I just knew that it was so bad at the same time that I just like forced myself to get through it.
Right.
My God, what a horrible game. But yeah, that's a Christmas memory.
Like, looking back in hindsight, like I was blown away by the graphics on the PlayStation when I got it. I'm like, oh, I've never played a 3D fighter before. Battle Arena Toshinden is great. Man, that game sucks. Have you played that game? Like,
I think I actually like looked it up. Like when we spoke about it on like a previous episode, I'm pretty sure I looked it up and I was like, holy shit, this looks bad.
I've been meaning to revisit it with the PlayStation Classic, and I haven't had an opportunity to.
But yeah, because it's on there, right?
It is. It is.
So if it's that bad, why the fuck did they put it on there?
Well, I mean, with that one, I can understand it because I'm almost positive it's a first-party game, and it was one of the launch titles for the system. So there's at least a justification for that. But, man, it is not good.
Damn. I mean, like, good. What is it? Is it just like a weird, like, fighter?
Well, you got to keep in mind back then, like, we're coming off of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and then there were a lot of copycats. Like, a big portion of my Super Nintendo collection are other fighting games because I was hitting up the bargain bin at KB Toys. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but I was buying really a bunch of SNK fighters.
Rest in peace, KB Toys, by the way.
Rest in peace, KB Toys. Man. But so I have like Art of Fighting, I have Fatal Fury 2, I have World Heroes 2, and I have a couple other games that were in that lineup.
Like War Gods.
But yeah, like you had games like War Gods, which just garbage. Or over on
Garbage.
the 3DO, it was I think Way of the Warrior. That one has it's got a Rob Zombie soundtrack, and no joke, that's the best part of the whole thing is the fucking soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
You fire it up and White Zombie is blaring at you. You try to play the game, forget it.
Is he still around? Not to go off topic here, but
yeah, I mean he's been doing a lot of movies.
Really?
Yeah, he's really big into directing. So I don't know the last time he's done an album, but I know he's been pretty prolific with his movie career. Can't tell you the quality. I've never really watched any of his stuff. I'm not a horror fan, but
yeah.
But other than that, like I remember getting Metal Gear Solid for Christmas.
Ooh, no, that's a title.
And I remember getting that with the DualShock controller. And you needed to have the DualShock for that game, right? As we've talked about.
Yeah, it's been years since I played that game, but I remember there was definitely like a reason for it. I just don't really.
Well, Psycho Mantis moves the controller on the ground, so that alone.
That's right. You had to have the rumble.
You had to have the rumble. Just like set your controller on the ground. They're like totally breaking the fourth wall. And I'm sitting on the floor in my bedroom playing this game. I'm like, and all he's like, set your controller on the floor. I'm like,
oh god,
okay. And all of a sudden it starts shaking. I'm like, this is great.
What a recognizable like memory for like almost every gamer.
And I remember being like really into that game. Like my mom and dad gave me the game, and like after we did our Christmas morning formalities and all that stuff, I immediately went upstairs and started playing it. And man, it was just awesome. I remember sitting in my room with my black lights on, just playing Metal Gear Solid. And then with like, I had to stop because we had to go visit my grandparents. So, and we hit both sides of the family. So we go to, my father's mother and father, and then we go to my mother's mother and father, and then be like, all right, can we go home? I want to play more Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah. With your black lights and your lava lamps from Hot Topic.
Yeah, man.
But I had a strobe light too from like Spencer's Gifts.
Yeah.
Which is like totally a definition of myself, by the way. I had all that shit. So
yeah.
I should not be dogging on you about this.
Yeah, don't be talking shit. I actually still have all those black lights at my parents' house too. I should get them.
I'm sure you do.
I should hook them up.
Get them, fire up MGS1.
Dude, I got the game room for it. Why not,
Yeah.
So, I might do that. That's
Get some of those beads, like when you walk in, those like glow-in-the-dark beads. Look like a fucking porn room.
No, I need the stars in the ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
You
gotta get the little, like the wall tack, so you can like tack them up.
Yep.
See, that's us like 90s like kids,
Did all that stuff, man.
We had all that shit.
I got a lava lamp going right now in my desk.
I know, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I have a Himalayan salt lamp.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Which is, it's like such a millennial thing.
You millennial. Anyway. Oh, man. But yeah, it's definitely some good memories. My parents didn't buy me a lot of video games in general. It was really... My grandfather funded a big part of my Super Nintendo collection, and it was only bargain bin stuff. Because he would like every time I would go over there, he'd be like, "All right, I'll take you to KB Toys. You can pick out a game, but you can only spend $20."
Yeah.
So I got some great games, but most of them came out of the bargain bin.
Yo, yeah.
I never had Legend of Zelda, or I never had. I'm trying to think of another Super Nintendo classic.
Super Star Wars.
I had those. Actually, Super Star Wars was in the bargain bin. I ended up getting that through there.
God, those games are so good. We're gonna have to like chat about those on a different episode.
Yeah, one of these days, man. I got all three of them, so we can play them and break those frustratingly hard games down.
Oh, they're so tough.
They're just unforgiving in all the best
ways. Very.
So, but folks, if you have any memories of your Christmas mornings when you were growing up, share them with us. We'd love to hear about them. Hit us up on social media at WDGRPodcast on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or shoot us an email at WDGRPodcast@gmail.com, and we'll read some of those over the air next week.
Yeah, let us know about your pajama-wearing bedhead Christmas mornings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's how it was.
It totally was, man. Coming down with your bed head like that.
Your wrinkled
Now,
PJs.
now I don't have any hair, so I don't have to worry.
We're all in that boat now, my friend.
So we decided last week that we were going to continue our indie playthrough. I don't know if we have an official title for this.
We don't. We need to come up with one because this is like an ongoing adventure.
It is. And it's one I've been enjoying. Like, I've beaten more games in the past 2 weeks than I have all year.
What a great idea.
So, if you have an idea for our series of indie games, please hit us up on social media.
Yeah. We need to keep this trend going because we need to prep ourselves to beat like 45-hour games next year.
Well, we've already talked about like starting to throw in stuff like Doom 3 and things like that. So I could see us like slowly ramping up as we get through the retail hell that you're in.
I'm fucking excited, man.
Yeah.
Let's hack into the backlog. Let's play some new stuff. Let's do this whole one game until it's beat, thing.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately, like, I know this is going to be a case where we're going to spend like a couple weeks talking about a game.
Easy.
I'm okay with that. If you guys are too, maybe we'll just make a quick reference, not to get into it too much, and then we'll just like one. I don't know. We'll talk about that off air. Now we're talking inside baseball here.
So what did we play?
Limbo. Limbo, and what did you play it on?
I played it on PS4.
PS4? All right. I was on my Xbox 360 for this one.
Okay. Which I think is a great way to play it because that's actually, from what I'm reading here, July 2010, it was released on Xbox Live Arcade.
Now, I don't recall if I purchased the game when it came out or if it was like a Games with Gold kind of thing.
One of the two, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I remember getting it relatively early on when it came out. And I never beat it back in the day. Like, I found
So you played some of it then?
I had played some of it before we started doing this.
Okay.
And I remembered actually how far I got too. And then like I started getting the parts that didn't look familiar. I'm like, okay, this is where I stopped.
Okay.
So I didn't get very far at all. Actually, now that I think about it, I think maybe it was like only 1 or 2 sections after the first spider.
Sure. That's pretty much like the demo. Like the demo is like that sequence.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a good demo. It was enough to kind of pique your interest or just not pique it at all.
Right.
Because some demos, as we all know, as gamers, are either terrible or they're good or actually they're sometimes too long.
Right.
But anyways, what did you think about this game? Let's have you dive into this first.
I don't know.
Let's hear it all.
Good,
the bad, the ugly.
I found myself frustrated with this game quite a bit.
Okay.
I like puzzle games.
Mm-hmm.
I like games that make me think. But there were a couple spots in this game where, like, I felt like I needed to like just throw my controller across the room. There were a couple spots where I just got really frustrated, and I admit I ended up using a guide for some sections, not the whole thing.
Understandable.
But there were a couple parts where it was just like, you know what, I can't do this, and I was more concerned about finishing the game than, trying to make some sort of a point.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's relevant.
So I did, I relied on a IGN walkthrough.
Mm.
Nothing video related. Everything was just pure text. I read it, I analyzed it, and then I figured it out.
Mm-hmm. I feel like didn't you say there was like a typewriter involved and like maybe the New York Times, something like that?
Letter to the editor?
Yeah. You like faxed, you got like a strategy guide like faxed to you.
Yeah. Carrier pigeon.
Mail
for you, sir.
Yeah, like the fax paper, that like weird shiny fax paper.
Oh God.
So challenging, frustrating.
I like the visuals of the game.
Mm.
The black and white I think was really very artistic. I think they did as a budding filmmaker, You know, it was nice to kind of see this whole chiaroscuro kind of thing, this balance with light and dark and shadows. And, you know, I could see inspiration from like Alfred Hitchcock versus like other games.
Yeah, it's very like film noir.
Very film noir. Absolutely. And I liked how the light kind of did factor into some of the things that were going on with like the brain slugs.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of interesting too. But I think generally speaking, like thinking about the game, like, I don't know that I necessarily had fun with it. It kind of felt like a chore at parts.
Yeah, I can totally co-sign on that. I think that, just to kind of segue in here, with my second playthrough, because this is only my second time playing it. First time I played it was pretty much around release. I think it was like 2010 or 11. And I started out with the demo on 360, and then I believe I just bought the game. No, I was actually gifted the game. One of my friends did one of those like Humble Bundle like packages or something and had like an extra code. Mm-hmm. So I received the game on PC, and I actually played on my iMac with my wireless keyboard and magic trackpad, which was not the greatest way to play this game, but at the same time, it's such a simple game in terms of controls.
Yeah.
That it actually was really not that bad. But that was how I played the game, and I remember really liking it, and I think it was for the same reasons that you liked it in terms of the visuals, the sound, and just kind of that film noir aspect of it. But I remember being very frustrated at times with the puzzles, and I will say that they're very, very well done, because when you look up the strategies, you're like, oh, now I get it, or it's like a kick yourself kind of reaction that you get often, and then sometimes you're like, wow, I had no idea like that's what you were supposed to do. So I think my final review, you know, and there's more that I want to talk about here, but I think that I'm with you. I think a little bit more than I was before, because I remember kind of like really enjoying this game, and I enjoyed it the second time through, but I felt more frustrated this time, because even though it was my second time playing it and I should have really knew how to kind of conquer these puzzles, or know how to conquer them, it was incredible. It was maddening at times. And then when I looked it up, I was like, all right, fine. Like, this is how it's done. And it became, like you said, a chore, where I just felt like I was just trying to get through the next segment just to get to the next one. And then I would be even more stumped.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, man, am I just that bad of a gamer, or are these puzzles just that challenging? And I think it's more the latter. It's more the fact that these puzzles are so clever and so simple in some ways, but like they really make you think, and they make you think outside of the box.
Well, like towards the end of the game, there were some sections where you start playing around with gravity. Mm-hmm. And to me, those were the ones that in those sections I enjoyed, I think, the most, because you could kind of see where things are going and what direction they're going in.
Yeah.
But your precision has to be spot on. Otherwise, the whole thing just falls apart.
Completely spot on.
So I'm looking at this thing where like I have to jump up, and then I have to tag this thing, and then I have to fall and hit another one so that I can go horizontal. I'm like, all right, I know what I have to do. My timing has to be precise.
Impeccable.
And that was challenging, but it was also fun, because like I was able to look at the big picture and figure it out, you know, without too much trial and error.
Yeah.
But some of the other ones is just like, how the fuck am I supposed to know to do this?
Right. It's almost like if you really didn't look up anything, I feel like some of these puzzles would take you like a while. And when I say a while, like I mean like maybe even an hour, because some of them, like you get to these areas, and I know that you felt this at times, because it's just impossible not to, but you get to an area and you're like, I don't get it. Like there's one box, there's like this one rope. I've tried everything, and I don't understand like how to progress. Yeah. And like you literally will sit there and you're like, fuck it, I'm looking it up. And you look it up, and then you're like, God damn it, like, why didn't I try it that way?
Right.
And like I said before, like, and then there are other times where the same thing happens, and then you look it up and you're like, there's no way that I would have ever figured that out.
Right.
Like, it would have taken me like days, hours, whatever. And like, I have no shame saying that. Like, I've done puzzle games. I'm pretty good at them. And this is one that even to this day, like it's still a big challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say that I just completely disliked the game, because that's not true. Like, I think there were parts of it that were rewarding, but I struggled to agree with the ratings. Like, I'm looking at, a lot of the ratings on this game, and people are giving it 9s and 10s, and I guess maybe it just wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. I think that this is not as well as it did. Mind you, this generated about 7.5 million in revenue.
Wow.
Which I had no idea. So like before the show, when I said that there was going to be some tidbits in this article that were, really, quite interesting, that was one of them. Yeah. And I had no idea that it did that well. I knew it did well, but not that well. So that's impressive, and it's impressive how many times it got ported to pretty much almost every platform imaginable.
Right.
But I think I'm with you. I think it's a great game, and I think that it's important for the independent scene, because I feel like it's the game that kind of almost started all of it. Started
in
all
a lot
of
of
like
ways.
It started that indie trend, because this is back in the Xbox Xbox Live Arcade days, where people were playing a lot of these kind of games before and after like their AAA titles, and it started that trend of like, wow, like there's some interesting like independent games out there like that are short and they're really sweet and they're good. Yeah. And this, to me, even though we feel kind of, I guess, mediocre about it now, it really did start that trend.
Do you think it's a case where like we kind of got caught up in the hype back then?
I think so. I think that some people, without a doubt, played this game, probably got very frustrated with it, but then they were kind of in denial about it, and they were like, oh yeah, no, it was brilliant. It's like, are you sure that you feel that way, or you're just kind of you're just going along with what everybody else is saying? Because I'm sure there are some people that are like obsessed with this game. They think it's like the greatest indie game ever, and it's up there on my list of indie games, but I feel like it's in top 20. I think it used to be in more of like a top 10 or top 15, but I would say that it's probably like 18, 19 out of my top 20 at this point.
Yeah.
And even that's being kind of generous. And again, I'm not hating on this game, but playing it now at the age of 33 after all these years, it was cool. It was fun, and I enjoyed most of it. But it's I don't know.
Well, I mean, games have evolved.
They have,
as a whole, and like you can't look at a game like the first Zelda game and try to compare it to something that's made today. Like it's just not possible. And you can see, like, you can use that game as like, okay, this game is inspired by the original Zelda, but like to compare the mechanics of it are completely different. So like something that I try to do whenever I play something older, especially if it's something that I don't already have nostalgia for, I try to look at it through the lens of, okay, what does this mean back then, and what does that mean today? How does this stack up in 2018? And sometimes it's not always the same.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it holds its value, and it holds like a lot of relevance, even today. But at the same time, there are still, I don't know, there are some really, really good indie games out now, and more that have come out after that, of course, that just, in my opinion, blow this game out of the water. But it is an important, game for that particular genre. I think it always will be. And, in terms of what this game is about, I feel like we kind of owe it to the audience to kind of just speak about this game a little bit more. I mean, what was your takeaway from it, besides the puzzle aspect and the frustration, like, regarding the plot? What was your thoughts on that?
Well, I think this is one of those cases where, again, like, I have trouble interpreting art. It seemed to me that the whole thing is just a loop, isn't it?
It seems that way. Even to this day, again, after playing it twice, I'm not 100% clear on, what the ending really meant, as well as like, what were you doing the whole time? Was it like an Inception thing? Was it a weird nightmare? Were you really stuck in this kind of, limbo?
Right.
No pun intended. Like, were you seeking out your sister? Because as far as I know, this plot is about, literally a boy who wakes up in a forest, which is very hellish, and there's some crazy stuff going on. Mind you, this game is quite violent at times.
Oh, yeah, it's very violent.
Very violent. I shouldn't even say quite violent. It's gruesome. But you wake up in this forest, and you're basically just traveling and traversing like these horrific puzzles at times, and saws, and all kinds of like really disturbing areas. And
right.
as far as I know, you're looking for your like lost sister. And
Yeah.
I don't want to really say too much about the ending or much more about, how the game is in terms of a plot, but there isn't a whole lot to it. I think that this game is you're playing as a lost boy with glowing eyes that blink sometimes, and you're traversing a very unsettling, atmospheric, like puzzle-like forest with, weird enemies, giant spiders, gangs of like other boys with like spears and blow darts and shit. Like I don't know. You're right. It's a weird game.
Yeah, and like just when I think like I start to figure out like what's going on, the setting changes. Like
Yeah, it's almost like industrial at times
it gets very industrial
with like steam and like weird like, engine type like contraptions and the gravity stuff, and then you've got like the organic like sort of forest kind of traps and
right.
bear traps and spiders and water traps, and like apparently this kid can't fucking swim to save his life.
Oh my god, I wanted to just bitch about that. Thank you so much for reminding me.
He dips his fucking pinky toe in, and he's just dead. He just drowns immediately.
That, I think, more than anything, pissed me off. Because
oh god.
I am totally fine with a game giving me some sort of an oxygen meter.
Yeah.
I am totally fine with a game making it so that you can't go beyond a certain depth.
Sure.
But this game will not let you go beyond waist height.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's like under the age of 10.
Dude, I was swimming when I was 3.
That's just not even, that's outrageous.
My mother took me to get like swimming lessons as soon as I was old enough to walk.
I should say really under the age of like maybe 7. But even then, I'm pretty sure I was swimming around then. Like, it's just...
Oh, man. I understand that not everybody has the same, fortunes, but like this kid would have fucking drowned in his bathtub.
Fuck fortunes, man. There's public pools everywhere.
I know. I wonder, like, did he never like go play in a puddle?
I don't know, man. But that you're right. That was incredibly frustrating because it was worse than getting like bone sawed.
I would rather have gotten bone sawed because at least that was something I had control over.
Yeah. But like when you drown,
I could. But then at the same time, okay, like I'm drowning in like an inch and a half of water, but I could fall 20 feet and land on my feet.
Yeah, it was frustrating because like it's not like a quick death where like you drown and it's like boom, you're back again. Like a lot of the deaths they really punish you and they make you watch like the whole thing. Yeah. And then you're like, all right, I got it. Like I drowned again. Can I please just like try this again? And you can't. You have to like wait for like your eyes to just like stop glowing, and you're like, all right.
And
like,
even
then it's still like another like it's like another like 5 full seconds, which it makes us sound incredibly impatient. But like 5 seconds is a long time. Like when you're frustrated.
When you're frustrated and you're doing the same puzzle for the 10th time or the 11th time, and you're like, what the hell am I doing wrong? And you're seeing the same death animation over and over again.
Oh God, it's maddening. That's what I was saying. Like there's so many puzzles that I'm sure you came across where you're doing it like 10 to 15 times and you're messing up the same way almost every time. And you're like, God damn it. Like, but that's also maybe like the clever aspect of it is like they knew that was going to happen, and they knew that every time that you would try, you would eventually just figure it out.
Yeah, I
But
guess.
see, that's the thing is like I kind of question myself and I question that sentence because there are other puzzle games that I've played that kind of have that same effect. But
Right.
like, there's something more rewarding about like when you figure it out. And with this one, it's very bare bones. Like
Yeah.
they don't give you any hints and there's no like, I don't know. I'm not really looking for hints, but at the same time, like it's just very like we're just going to put you right back to where you were again, and you're going to figure it out. I guess it's kind of like a Dark Souls, effect,
Mm-hmm.
which
Well,
is
I mean,
fine. But
I do appreciate the amount of checkpoints that they had. Like
that's true.
after every single puzzle, and in some cases mid puzzle, there was a checkpoint.
Hmm.
Which, despite the long drawn out death animations, I think the checkpoints really did help.
Yeah.
Kind of keep things moving. So to me, that was good because that cut down on a lot of playtime that would have been unnecessary. It's like once you figure out how to get past this thing, there's really no reason to revisit it.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. And one other thing too is they did a nice job with like secret areas too. One of the benefits of using the strategy guide was I was able to grab some extra achievements along the way.
Like those little glowing things, right?
The little glowing things, yeah.
Yeah. Were those
And you
like
have to,
the skull slugs?
the strategy guide referred to them as eggs.
Ah, that's right.
So I don't necessarily know that it was, but
What did you think about the soundtrack? Because I enjoyed that.
I mean, it was just kind of. It doesn't really. I don't really remember.
Well, I mean, like that's a
It
fair
didn't.
statement. Like it doesn't really like stand out per se, but I
It
feel like it's
wasn't.
very fitting for what you're experiencing.
I agree. It was very fitting. But I don't necessarily think it was memorable. Like it was definitely background to what was happening.
Yeah.
So by design, maybe that's what it was meant to do. Like I'm looking here, and they did have a soundtrack, and the length of it was less than 20 minutes.
Yeah. I was actually listening to it on the way home just to kind of get like, into that world, before the show.
How do you feel about it?
I'm a fan of the composer. His name is Martin Stig Anderson.
Yep.
And he was the same guy who actually couldn't think of his name, like when I was referring to Shockwave from Inside.
Yeah.
And that is the spiritual successor to Limbo, which I'm very excited about getting to because I'm really quite confident that you'll enjoy that game more than Limbo.
Okay.
It has some of the same kind of themes as Limbo, but I think it's much more intuitive, and you can tell that it's quite, they put a lot of work into this one.
Yeah.
Not that they, didn't with Limbo, but with Inside, it's oh my God, that game, I would say that's my top 5 for sure. And that's saying
Inside.
a lot. Yeah. Inside is phenomenal.
I'm looking forward to playing that. I know that's on our list.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, I think that, I enjoyed the Inside soundtrack more, but there are some kind of special tracks that stand out for Limbo, and I just think that it's very creepy and unsettling, and perhaps I'm more, kind of prone to enjoying that because of Silent Hill series, which is another game series that holds a special place in my heart.
Did the same composer do Silent Hill?
No, Silent Hill was composed by Akira Yamaoka, Japanese dude. So totally different kind of spectrums of the world, but because I think Martin is like Dutch or Swedish or something like that. I think he's Swede.
Okay.
But yeah, he's the same guy that used a human skull for parts of Inside. Yeah, creepy. Just like the Limbo soundtrack, it's incredibly unsettling.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I like, soundtracks like that, because they're different and they're not really, it's not even really music. It's just like creepy, eerie sounds with like, mysterious tones. And I thought it was perfect for the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, it wasn't obtrusive. I think it enhanced the game.
Yeah.
More than it harmed it. It didn't harm it at all. But I also really hesitate to call it memorable. Like if you asked me to hum anything from it, I couldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to either. I mean, there are some aspects like of the soundtrack, like especially towards the end of the game, that get kind of like almost dreamlike.
Yeah.
where you can almost like hear that the end of the game is coming, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wouldn't say that it stands out, but I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Well,
glad that you experienced the game. As strange and frustrating as it is, I think it's an important one to kind of recognize, where this kind of cult
yeah.
started.
I mean, not every game is going to be for me, and that I understand that, there are games that I thought I was going to love that I hated, and there were games that I thought I would hate that I loved. And, it's just like movies or music, like everything is going to have its own audience, and I'm not going to be part of every audience that it has.
Well, think about it this way, and this is something that I just thought of. And some people, like big movie buffs, might like criticize me for this, but like I feel like Limbo is kind of like The Godfather Part 1.
Okay.
So the way that I feel about that movie is, yes, it was good.
Mm-hmm.
But is it as good as people say it is? I don't think so. I think it's incredibly overhyped.
Yeah.
Without going into like, all of that, I think Part 2 was the best out of 3. But Limbo is like Godfather Part 1, and then the trend of mob movies started. And to me, Goodfellas, Casino, all those other movies were way better. And that's how I feel about Limbo. It's important. It's part of like a particular genre that holds its value and holds its worth. But, I would say now my final review is I would give it probably like a 7 out of 10. And it's a little overhyped. But it deserves its place in this world for sure.
I would have to go a little bit lower. I think I would probably give it a 6.
Fair. I respect that.
And that's just not criticizing the game mechanically. I think the game is mechanically sound. I think it does a good job of creating atmosphere, but it's not something I'll never play it again.
Yeah. I probably won't. I mean, I might go back and revisit some certain chapters or whatever, but maybe go hunting for the eggs.
Since we're on the topic of like giving a score to things too, I also think it's important to recognize. I feel that 9s and 10s are given out way too freely nowadays.
Very much so.
And when I look at a game and what it is, 5 is very much an average game for me because it is in the middle of a scale from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that a 6 is not necessarily a bad score. I know. And I'm guilty of doing this too. When I look at a game and I see something maybe has like a 6 or a 7, I'm like, oh, that game is no good.
Yeah.
And that's not true. That's not how scores work.
I always take it with a grain of salt, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like with any kind of review, you have to look at the bigger picture and how the reviewer feels about it and how you'll feel about the same things. So...
Yeah, I completely agree. And usually with games, like especially reviews, I usually try to watch at least like 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. And there are certain people that I trust and certain,
absolutely, yeah,
editors.
And if we had to get I don't think we ever assigned a number to Journey, but I would probably be more inclined to give Journey like a 7.5 or an 8.
Sure.
So just kind of put things in perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like I said, multiple times on this show, my perspective has changed, and I remember originally you thought that we were going to kind of butt heads on this one, but not so much after my second playthrough.
Yeah, I'm actually very surprised, especially with our early conversations. I know you were very hyped about this game, and when I was finished with it and I told you I really didn't care for it, like I felt like I was going to break your heart.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, my opinions change all the time, and there are certain games that are kind of set in stone. But this one, I knew was going to be a toss-up.
Yeah.
Because it had just been so long.
So, looking ahead, I know we have a few games on our list. This seems to be the type of thing that we'd like to make a regular feature part of the podcast. I don't know that it'll be every week, but, most weeks I think we'd like to talk about these types of things.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that's kind of like on your mind is what you'd like to play next, or?
Yeah, I know we kind of chatted before about Inside, which we've spoken about a couple times, so I think we all know what game that is. Grease, if we're pronouncing that correctly, looks astonishing.
That's a brand new game that just dropped, I think, within the past week.
Yeah, I think it was like December 13th, I want to say.
It's available on Switch and PC so far, Windows, but nothing else that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I think it's like $16 or $17, so pretty affordable.
Right, and it looks astonishing. It's been getting great reviews, so that's something that's on my list too.
Yeah, no, it's on there. So I guess those two are standing out to me at the moment. I mean, there's certainly a lot more that I could probably pick at, but what about you?
I mean, there's a few games that like I've started playing that I never finished. I'd love to go back to Hyper Light Drifter. I'd really like to go back and try to finish Axiom Verge. That's an older game, although it is a fairly recent release on the Switch. But that game came out a couple years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's a couple strategy games that I think you might enjoy, but they don't necessarily have what I would consider an ending. Into the Breach, which actually was named PC Gamer's Game of the Year. I just found out about that today. That is an absolutely tremendous strategy game, but it's the type of game that you can put 50 hours into and never beat.
Sure.
So that's kind of a tough one for me to present to you, I think, as something to play, because I know it's not like it doesn't necessarily have a finite ending.
Yeah. Well, so maybe we could, not to interrupt, Drew, but maybe we could create this kind of list that we sort of have already, right? And maybe we could ask you guys, the audience, what should we play next?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And if we don't get enough people chiming in, then you and I will just kind of roll the dice and kind of see where it takes us.
I like that. So let's work on something like that. And if you're listening to this, keep an eye out on social media.
Yeah, and just vote for Grease, and then we should be good to go.
Exactly. Anything else that you want to chime in before we wrap things up for the evening?
I think I'm good, man. Leave us a comment, on the email, on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you, might be checking us out, and let us know about what game we should play next. We're going to make a post about it in the next couple of days, sooner than later. And, just let us know what you think we should play, because I think that Drew and I are pretty flexible when it comes to this list, even though we really want to play a couple different titles. I think it would be a good way for us to kind of branch out. Definitely.
And of course, if you guys have anything that you want to talk about, hit us up on social media. Let us know what you're playing, what your Christmas memories were at WDGRPodcast on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. You can email us, WDGRPodcast@gmail.com. And just send us a quick letter. If you like what we're doing, please take a moment to leave a review. If you can leave a review on iTunes, 5 stars is great. 4 stars is okay. If you leave us a 1-star review, well, you're just kind of a jerk. But I'll let it slide. But seriously, though, in all honesty, please take the time to review us. And if you don't like what we're doing, tell us, because that's the only way we're going to get better.
And Drew, is there like a fax line that people can reach us at, or is that just strictly for you?
It's 203 FUCKYOU.
Yep. If you guys need help with Limbo, Drew should be able to fax you a strategy guide, and just make sure your fax is hooked up with the shiny wax paper, and we should be good.
Does anybody even have a landline anymore?
Very few people.
Yeah.
But I feel like we need to bring back like fax machines. Those things were like gargantuan.
We used to use them at my previous job.
There was like, they had the phone, and like you don't use the phone, but like the receiver was still there just in case. Like it was so fucking weird. Well, that's a good way to wrap up the show, I guess. Fucking fax machines.
If somebody wants to take a picture of their fax machine and send it directly to you, how can they find you?
Will_gear on pretty much everything.
And if you'd like to send me pictures of your fax machine, and this is not a sexual term, please hit me up at Scion Storm. Folks, thank you so much for downloading the show. We've been having a blast doing this. We appreciate you guys listening. And we'll see you next week. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.